Thank you, Shama. Thanks, Shama, and good evening to everybody. Hopefully I can do all this justice now after the build-up. So yeah, head, neck, and heels in health and wellness for quite some time now. And I love watching people taking control of their long-term health and wellness. I love watching people reverse health challenges that they were told nothing could be done about. And it's a fantastic feeling when you were the guiding factor in that person doing that. When about 14 years ago, when information was shared with me on how to actually clean the cardiovascular system, I used myself as a guinea pig. And I was 46 at that time. My vascular system was showing up as a 40-year-old. I was 6 years better than my birth certificate. 90 days later, my cardiovascular system showed up to be that of a 22-year-old. And then a couple of months after that, it showed up to be a teenager. So that was my testing pot to see, was this information a load of codswallop or was it completely genuine? And I realized it was 100% genuine. Then I started to share the same information with other people and watch the exact same thing happen. So a little bit of understanding about the cardiovascular system. When we don't supply the body with the correct nutrition, it is not able to address the problems it has to deal with. And the cardiovascular system is no different. So we eat foods that contain an amino acid called arginine. Arginine goes into our bloodstream and attaches to the lining of the veins and arteries called the endothelium. And there we naturally manufacture a gas called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide was proven in 1998, Nobel Prize for Medicine, to be a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. And it is called the miracle molecule because of all the benefits within the body, not just the cardiovascular system, because nitric oxide can also be used as a hormone, a neurotransmitter, and an intercellular messenger. So there's a lot of benefits to increasing nitric oxide production. But from a cardiovascular perspective, at the best of times, most people will manufacture nitric oxide gas for between 1 and 3 seconds. And that's assuming you don't have blockers to nitric oxide production. And 1 person in 2 has blockers to nitric oxide production, which would be things like ADMA, which is short for asymmetric dimethylarginine, myeloperoxidase, which is the fancy name for oxidized LDL cholesterol. And they actually inhibit nitric oxide production. So ideally, you're wanting to make as much nitric oxide as possible, because when you make enough nitric oxide, your cardiovascular system actually keeps itself clean, elastic, and free-flowing. So when the people who have natural blockers to nitric oxide production are only making a small fraction of the 1 to 3 seconds, they are definitely going to clog up their arterial system with plaque. And then they are at more risk of a heart attack or stroke. We actually have a way of fueling the body whereby we can now increase nitric oxide production for up to and beyond 36 hours instead of just that 1 to 3 seconds. Now the body has enough fuel to start melting plaque that is in the arterial system. And we've seen people who were 5 years bedridden from stroke with no feeling on one side of the body, and within 5 weeks, by rising this nitric oxide production, starting to get the feeling back in the dead side of the body and continue to repair. We've also seen people who were told they needed triple bypass and have gone back 3 months later and told they don't need any surgery. So we know it works. So that'd be the cardiovascular side of what I'm going to cover. And obviously, if one wants to be in good health, you're going to need, number 1, very good oxygenated blood supply going around the body and getting everywhere. But you're also going to need decent nutrition carried within that blood. So every organ, every gland, and every extremity is going to get that oxygenated blood supply plus the nutrition. So it's important to have our immune system in good condition also. And some people have a weak immune system, and anything that passes the far end of the street, they catch it and they succumb to it. And then there's other people have conditions like autoimmune conditions where their own immune system is attacking themselves. So you don't want either situation. You want a balanced immune system where everything is in order. So what we use to help balance the immune system is extremely high level antioxidants. Now, what do antioxidants do? They neutralize free radicals. Free radicals cause a speeding up of the aging process, and they cause inflammation and harm within the body. So the more antioxidants you have, the less free radicals you will have, and therefore you will slow down the aging process. I often like to explain to people that we are like a photocopy machine, because we are at a cellular level replacing our body all the time. Now, most of you will have used a photocopier at some point, and a photocopy machine, if it's in absolutely perfect condition, and you put in a clean sheet of paper and you press copy, it will come out perfectly clean. But if you put in a sheet of paper into a photocopy machine that had been badly maintained, and you often see them in offices, you have a bit of Tipp-Ex stuck in the glass, you have a bit of dust on the mirror. When you press copy, you see the blemishes of where they were on the piece you copied. But if you swing that around 90 degrees and copy it again, it's going to have twice as many blemishes. So once you provide the body with massive amounts of nutrition, massive amounts of antioxidants, what do? We clean the photocopier. So now we have the capability of replacing our cells at a much higher quality, much higher level. And that's how you slow down the aging process, by providing the body with excellent antioxidants. Now, the one I use and prefer and have used for the last 14 years, actually at 30 mils twice a day, has been proven to reduce free radical damage in the body by 43% in 3 weeks. So you're talking about really slowing down the aging process by 43% in 3 weeks also. On top of being massive nutrition, massive antioxidants, it's a natural anti-inflammatory, natural pain suppressant, and protects the cells from viruses. So that's one of the raw foods we use to be sending around in this now cleaning itself circulatory system. The third part of health, as we would call it, and the third part of what we call the vital three, is body pH. And most people don't tune into body pH, but it's actually hugely important. Your pH level, actually 9 people out of 10 are over acidic. And we shouldn't really be over acidic. The problem when we are over acidic is, and actually what puts us into an acidic situation is, number one, having loads of acidic foods with no alkaline ones. Number two, medications. Number three, stress. All those are putting the body into an acidic state. Now, what's the problem with being in an acidic state? We invite acid-based health challenges. What would they be? Chronic pain, arthritis, osteoporosis, acid reflux, and cancer. All of those would cause people to, those conditions to thrive within the people who are acidic. So oftentimes when I come across people who are suffering from one of those conditions, I would actually go about alkalizing their body faster, because that's when you can put it into a healing state. The body is going to go into a healing mode when it's in an alkaline pH. But when it's in an acidic pH, it's just going to create problem after problem after problem. Oftentimes also, you'll find people who are acidic, they're going to have signs of brittle bones, and they're going to have signs of pains and aches. And one of the reasons that happens is because your body is going to keep your blood at a pH of 7.365, slightly alkaline. And it will prioritize that over other things. And when you are acidic, your body will have a bigger job to keep your blood at 7.365. But what does it do? It actually takes calcium from your bones. It takes magnesium from your muscles, and it donates it to your blood, because it's prioritizing keeping that at 7.365. So what happens is you end up with brittle bones and you end up with muscle cramp. But really, you cause the whole problem yourself by not being aware of this and not rectifying that problem. So what I use personally is we use a live raw green supplement, where every 10 mils of it is equivalent to eating a kilo of leafy green veg. So I will have some of that after every meal to counteract the acidic foods I've taken in, help digest the foods I've just taken in, And it's also going to improve the blood quality, because there's a very good relationship between human hemoglobin and chlorophyll, which is the green coloring in plants. So molecularly, if you look at the molecular makeup of chlorophyll and the molecular makeup of human hemoglobin, they're actually the exact same molecule with one slight difference. And the slight difference is the central ion for human hemoglobin is iron. The central ion for chlorophyll is magnesium. And that is the only difference. But when chlorophyll goes into the body turns the magnesium ion into an iron ion. So the higher quality raw greens you put into your system, it is very close to having a blood transfusion. So we've seen people who have blood disorders, let's say pregnant mums having low iron or different other blood issues. When they start to get raw greens into their system, you will find that the blood issue rectifies itself. So it's very helpful to know that. The third area or the fourth area of being in control of one's health and wellness is the gut microbiome. And we only really started tuning into that area about 4 years ago. Was it 4 or 5 years ago? And I didn't know a lot about it before that. I never even knew it existed. And a lot of people probably still don't know it exists. But your gut microbiome, believe it or not, has a controlling effect on every system in your body. And there's an ecosystem within your gut called the microbiome. And this is made up of approximately 100 trillion cells. And those cells are broken down into things like good bacteria, bad bacteria, microflora, fungi. And that makes up the gut microbiome. But 10% of that gut microbiome has your DNA. So people talk about hereditary issues, but really only 10% of them should be hereditary issues because you're responsible for the other 90%. And that's going to be determined by your diet and the influences around you, what you're taking into your body, what poisons are around you, what you're consuming that's been altered. If you have the same diet and you have the same issues that your parents had, well then yes, you'll have the same problem. But if you can actually override that and take control of it. So believe it or not, your gut microbiome and your brain are very closely connected through the vagus nerve. And when your good and bad bacteria are at the correct ratios, i.e. about 85% good and 15% bad, that's perfect. And they lock in together and create a wall. That wall actually stops toxins leaking from the gut out into the bloodstream. So when you have over time overfed the bad bacteria and underfed the good, what happens is you get a change in government that you didn't really want, and it is working against you. Now the bad bacteria is in control, and the bad bacteria is now having a knock-on negative effect on every system in your body, because you have a little bit of leaky gut going on with that. You have inflammatory responses, and then you have people having intolerances to different foods, because when you take those foods, it's causing more issues because there's more leaky gut, and it's a knock-on effect. Also, about 80% of your immune system is around your gut. So people who have autoimmune conditions, the gut is probably where it started. In fact, they say that Parkinson's starts in the gut. So when we come across people who have fairly serious conditions, not only do you correct the cardiovascular system, immune system, and pH balance, it's sometimes important to start correcting the gut microbiome, either as a starting point or to add it in somewhere in the future. And I'll give an example of a lady who was actually HIV positive, but she was very weak and bloated and not in a great condition. And it probably would have been too difficult for her to go straight into a gut reset. So the decision was made to start on what we call the V3, start rectifying that, and then she started to get stronger and stronger. And it was about 3 months later when she started, felt well enough to be able to start doing a gut reset. But I know that after about a week into doing the gut purification, she was called in for tests, and the tests showed that the virus count in her body had halved. But then 3 months later, when she was back for her next test, the virus count said undetectable. So it's very important to have a look at all of those areas, and then to choose a path. it's actually really good to have a good discussion with somebody beforehand to decide the path, decide the levels. Some people need more fuel for certain conditions of a certain type of fuel. Some people need to go heavier on one than another, depending on what's going on. But I might just share screen, depending on what time I have left, and just show you the possibilities for, Madeline, does that mean no, stop, or does that mean carry? Okay.
If we want to respect the time and the breakout rooms, please come to an end.
Okay, that's grand. Well, believe it. I won't show you that then. You're grand. No bother.
Shamar?